Back into it. A lot to talk about. Spending, obviously, top of mind for me right now. Spending and terrorists in America, top of mind for me right now. The big, beautiful bill continues to deliver on parts of Donald Trump's agenda, but it also fails to deliver on spending restraints. What about regulation? Can we get that under control? Maybe. I mean, there are good parts of this bill. Let's see what Phil Kerpen, the president of the American Commitment, has to say about it as he weighs in. He joins me now. Phil, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so spending, I'm not pleased at all with where we are on spending on this, but we'll get there. I think that people like Ron Johnson and Rand Paul and others will rein in the spending concerns here. But what about regulation? Regulation without representation is just as bad as, well, taxation without representation, in my estimation. So one of the things that Donald Trump did in his first term was to require that you got rid of a couple of regulations if you're going to add one. He's increased that, allegedly, here in the second administration, and I believe that he probably is working to have that happen. But where are we on it? What about regulation? What about your take on this big, beautiful bill?
Yeah, the president has upped that. In the first term, he had a rule that for every one new regulation, an agency had to get rid of 2 old ones. Now he's requiring 10 old regulations be removed for every one new one that's put in place. And he's been pretty aggressive. You know, the thing about deregulation of the way our process works right now is you can do a really good job of reversing all the regulations from the Obama administration as he did in his first term, but then you can have a Democrat come in as Biden did and bring them all back and then some. So we've got this problem where because all of these regulations and deregulations are being done inside the executive branch, they can kind of swing like a pendulum with the party in power, which is really bad for businesses to have the rules whipsaw back and forth and have a bunch of crazy regulations come on when the Democrats are in, go off when Trump is in, and then swing back and forth. So one of the things that would really fix that problem and would force much more accountability in Congress for all of this is this idea of the Reins Act, which is kind of the unfinished business from the Tea Party era. This is the bill that says major new regulations, the agency shouldn't be able to just impose it. Instead, it should have to send it up to Congress as a proposal, and it should require affirmative majorities in the House and Senate before it can take effect. And Steve, just to sort of understand how important this concept is, remember that even when Democrats controlled everything in Washington, you had Obama, Reid, and Pelosi, they couldn't get that cap and trade climate bill through. They barely got it through the House. They never even voted on it in the Senate, even though they had 60 Democratic senators at the time. But Obama said, hey, I have a pen and a phone, and he took about half the things in that bill, and he had the EPA do it anyway. And some of them eventually fell in court. Others are still in effect, and others Trump got rid of, and then, Biden brought back.
Well, some would argue, Phil, that the EPA was, created improperly. It was created by an executive order by Richard Nixon, the EPA. Think about that. An executive order created this monstrosity that wants to control every drop of water in America and every, little bit of particulate that comes off a campfire. My campfire. Next to my pond and my water, they want to regulate the whole damn thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's pretty outrageous. And of course, Trump can get rid of all these rules, but, if we don't get Congress to act, if we don't get the laws changed, then they can all snap back in the next Democratic administration. So there are some really good, first of all, give Congress a lot of credit for banning the California waiver that lets states ban internal combustion vehicles. That's a big deal. We're going to get a signing ceremony at the White House.
I'll give them some credit. I'm not giving Congress big credit on much of anything until I see some big action.
Give them credit for actually passing a bill on that. They haven't passed very much.
Fair enough.
But there are other energy provisions in the big beautiful bill that are very, very important. So they permanently ban, for instance, electric vehicle mandates out of both the EPA and the Department of Transportation. So those can't just snap back with the next Democratic administration. But this process fix, this idea of the Reins Act, where any major regulation would have to go to Congress for approval, that's so important. And Jim Jordan did include it in the House version of the big, beautiful bill in the Judiciary Committee title. They actually took it out at the last minute in the manager's amendment in the House, but they did that because they were scared that the Senate rules might take down the whole bill if it's included. But Senator Thune is trying to get it back in, is trying to get it to pass Senate muster with the parliamentarian. Senator Mike Lee is pushing very hard for that. So that is still an unresolved question whether they'll be able to include that or not. But if they can't include it in this bill, they've got to find some other way to get it passed before the end of Trump's administration so that the next time a Democrat's in, they can't just bring back all the
Right,
crazy
right, right. And that's what we want. I mean, regulation should not be something that, some bureaucrat sitting in some office, in a side hallway in Washington is able just to basically write because they've got some legal training, boom, or they're an attorney and they throw it in there. Because that's kind of how it works, right? Who reads these bills that are 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 pages? Nobody, as Nancy Pelosi aptly pointed out a number of years ago. So again, the REINS Act is in here, basically. But we're a long way from getting this bill.
It's technically out at the moment, but both the House and Senate want it in. So if they can figure out procedurally how to do it, it will be back in.
Right. And if it was not in, can it pass on its own? Can it stand up on its own not before the end of Donald Trump's time, before the midterms? Because that's really the only time we have is now and a year from now.
Yeah, probably not, because if it were on its own, the Democrats would filibuster it. Look, there's only been one Senate Democrat who's ever supported this bill in the 15 years we've been trying to get it passed. It was Joe Manchin. He's not there anymore. Democrats, it's weird. They say they want to be senators, they want to be legislators, they want to write the laws, but they don't want to write the laws for the most important things that affect the economy. All of these regulations, they'd rather look the other way, have the bureaucrats and the regulators make all the important decisions. It's a problem. And so I think if we're ever going to get this done, it needs to be part of a bigger bill. And this is the best chance we've had in a long time. So we're really pushing hard for it.
Yeah. It's an important consideration. All right. Anything else that you've seen in the first 150 days, give or take, of this administration that you're pleased with or unpleased with? Last question.
Well, I think generally regulatory policy in the executive branch has been very, very good, and they've reversed a huge swath of what Biden did. The challenge is, making it all stick in court, because we've seen how crazy so many of the judges out there are, and trying to get these things made permanent by fixing the process in Congress. And I'd also really like to see my friend Casey Mulligan from the University of Chicago confirmed to be the regulatory czar at the Small Business Administration, one of the many Trump appointees that the Senate just hasn't gotten to yet. So they've got to pick up the pace on confirmations also.
Fair enough. Phil Kerpen, President of the American Commitment, thank you as always.
All right. Have a good one, Steve.
Greatly appreciate it. There you have it. All right. So here's a little. I look at I keep coming back to this open border, the money we're spending, the inability to get spending under control, Republicans unable to control their own lust for money and power. Here's a headline. A Chinese student at the University of Michigan fled to China after being charged with illegal voting. More people in the country illegally. Illegal voting schemes, here it is. Other things impacting you as an American citizen being brushed under the carpet. A Chinese student at the University of Michigan fled to China after being charged with illegal voting in the 2024 election. I thought that didn't happen. I thought illegal voting didn't happen. Well, apparently it happens in Michigan. In October, while attending the university as a foreign national student, Housing Gao turned himself in after being registered to vote and casting a ballot in the general election in Michigan, charged with 2 felonies, false swearing to register to vote and trying to vote as an unqualified elector. I thought this didn't happen, folks. But here it is. Of course it happens, and in great numbers. Yeah, they're lying to you. After the break, let's talk about the economy with Nick Hopwood, shall we? It's straight ahead on the Steve Gruber Show.